What's up, my G's, and welcome to my Dragon Quest journey, a series where I explore the world and stories of the Dragon Quest franchise. Now that I'm finished with the first Dragon Quest trilogy, it's finally time to dive into the manga. The manga originally ran from October 1989 to December 1996. It even spawned the anime series that ran from October 1991 to September 1992 with only 46 episodes. I started reading the manga and I got hooked immediately, and I can't wait for the premiere in fall. I hope nothing delays it. And with Toei Animation behind it, I'm sure they'll do a great job. Today we'll start with Volume 1, Chapters 1 through 9. And with all that said and done, let's jump right in. Chapter 1, Nirupa, Iru, Part 1. The story starts off on Durmlin Island, an island inhabited with monsters. They all lived in peace since the Demon Lord was defeated by the hero. Among the monsters was an old lump wizard who raised a young human boy named Dai. Dai's parents were killed out on the ocean in a shipwreck. Brass, the old lump wizard, found Dai and raised him as his own, trying to teach him magic so that he could become a wizard as well. Dai had trouble with learning how to use magic. He couldn't even use a single spell. He wanted to be a hero and often pretended that he was a hero on the island with his wooden sword. One day he was out on the beach with his friend Gome, who is a golden metal slime, when they saw a ship approaching. Dai looked through his telescope and saw that the ship had 4 people on it who looked like heroes. Convinced that they were heroes, Dai called one of his monster friends and hitched a ride over to the heroes on the ship. The heroes were actually looking for a rare monster, the golden metal slime, and they were actually bad guys. Dai, unaware of the danger, introduces himself to them. The heroes was a party of 4 consisting of a priest, a warrior, a mage, and the main guy who looked like Erdrick from Dragon Quest III. They lie to Dai and tell him that they want to learn more about the monsters, and Dai agrees to help them. The fake heroes and Dai make it to the island, and Dai whistles and calls for an assembly of all the monsters as they rush towards him. They tell Dai that they are actually looking to learn more about the golden metal slime, and Dai hands Gome over to them. The fake heroes attack Dai and all the monsters and kidnap Gome, and leave the island taking Gome with them. Dai and the monsters on the island recover, and Dai is determined to go save Gome. Brass gives Dai these magic tubes that trap monsters and people inside of them like a Pokeball using 2 different words. Nirupa to let them out, and Iru to trap them inside. It doesn't use magic, so anybody can use it. He also gives him a special tube given to him by the Demon King long ago to use if the situation arises. With all of his monster friends inside of the tube, Dai goes chasing after the fake heroes to rescue his friend Gome. Chapter 2, Nirupa, Iru, Part 2. The fake heroes are in the kingdom of Romos, presenting the golden metal slime to the king and telling him that the island was infested with evil monsters. They hand Gome over to the king as a prize, and once the king sees the slime, he awards the fake heroes with the hero crown and an abundance of money and decides to throw them a party. The priest of the party went out shopping for an outfit for the party, when she was ambushed by Dai in a clothing store. Dai kidnaps her and ties her up. He interrogates her by using his monster friends and learns the weaknesses of her party members. Leaving behind the group of slimes to watch her, Dai goes out to crash the party. While the party is going on, Dai launches an attack and releases all of his monster friends on the party. Using the weaknesses of the fake heroes, he's able to take out the warrior and the mage. All that's left is the main fake hero. They start fighting, but Dai is no match for the fake hero. The fake hero manages to break Dai's sword and grabs him by the neck. Dai, with no other choice, remembers the special magic tube that Brass gave him. Dai uses the magic tube and out comes a bunch of monsters from a foreign land that he's never seen before. They all surround the fake hero and Dai gains the upper hand. Dai orders the monsters to attack, but right before they attack, the girl priest shows up with the slimes in her neck and holds them hostage, and Dai tells everyone to stand down. Dai, with nothing left, holds the magic tube tight and it starts to brighten. The slimes in the net fuse together and become a huge king slime that crushes the priest. While the fake hero is distracted, Dai uses the magic tube and traps the fake hero inside of it. The king, seeing that the fake heroes were lying, apologizes to Dai and gives him the hero crown that he was going to give to the fake hero. Dai heads back to the island with all of his friends and Gome. Chapter 3. The next story starts off on Durmlin Island again. Dai is still training and practicing his magic with Brass. They see another boat approaching, and this time it's a holy ship. Aboard the ship was the Bishop Temujin, the Sage Baron, and the Princess Leona of Papunica. The princess is to be their successor and become a sage. They have come to the island to have the princess perform a ritual and receive the blessing of the Earth God. This ritual must be done within 1 month's time of the princess's 14th birthday and alone in the place that's closest to the Earth God. a volcanic cave located on Durmlin Island. The king of Romo said that Dai would be the perfect one to help show him the way. Dai leads Leona and her guards to the cave, while the sage, baron, and the bishop stay back with Brass. While on the way to the cave, Dai reveals that he can't use spells, and Leona makes fun of him, but also gives him a knife that was handed down for generations. After he gets the knife, we see a hand holding a magic tube. Nirupa! Out comes a giant monster known as a demon scorpion that quickly disperses of Leona's guards. The scorpion attacks Dai, who is busy checking on the guards, and Leona uses a magic attack on the scorpion. Gira! The spell is reflected off the scorpion's shell, and the scorpion attacks Leona and hits her with its tail, poisoning her. Dai jumps to her rescue and starts fighting the scorpion, but none of his attacks are even scratching the thick armor of the demon scorpion. He remembers the knife that Leona gave him, and ends up wounding the scorpion, cutting its eye. Dai realizes that the knife can pierce the shell, and decides he needs to hit a vital spot. He calls one of his monster friends, who swoops down from the sky and picks Dai up into the air. While in the air, Dai spots the scorpion's heart and drops down, piercing it through his strong armor. The knife gets stuck and the scorpion goes to stab Dai with his tail, but Dai dislodges the knife in the back of the scorpion and swiftly cuts his tail off. We see the silhouette of the person responsible for releasing the demon scorpion, and he seems unhappy that Dai was able to defeat it. Dai realizes that the princess is poisoned and that someone needs to use the cure spell on her or she will die, but Dai, unable to use magic, is helpless. Chapter 4. Dai sends Gome to find Brass while he stays with the princess. The sage Baron shows up and Dai is relieved to see him until he sees the magic tube in Baron's hand. Baron reveals that he was planning on only killing the princess because she would cause problems for them if she doesn't die on the island. He uses an earth spell and sends the princess and Dai crashing into the cave below. Dai finds himself inside of the cave with no way out, along with the princess, who is still unconscious. Gome finds Brass and tells him of the situation with the scorpion, and Brass tells the bishop that they need to get to the princess immediately. Brass, suspicious of why there was a demon scorpion on the island in the first place, starts walking to help the princess, but is stopped in his tracks by the remaining guards with the bishop. The bishop reveals that he wants the princess to die, so he won't let Brass go save her. He explains that if the princess were to die, the heir to the throne will be lost and control of Havn't will fall onto the bishop. They came to this island to have her killed by monsters so they can return and rule the country of Havn't. Brass uses some magic to take the guards out and tells Gome to call for an assembly of the monsters on the island to get rid of the bishop and his men. Baron sees the monsters heading towards Brass and the bishop with a suspicious look on his face. Back in the cave, Dai is carrying Princess Leona on his back, searching for an exit with no luck. All of the exits are blocked. We switch over to the holy ship and the guards on the ship are in panic because the monsters are starting to mobilize. Baron shows up behind them and surprises them. The monsters surround the bishop, and Brass has the upper hand. Boom! An explosion on the water. The holy ship is destroyed, and standing in the water is a killer machine. Stated to be originally created by the Demon King in order to kill the hero, and that it hasn't moved since the demon was killed but was suddenly moving again. It is revealed that the person inside the machine was none other than the Sage Baron, using his magic powers to move it. The bishop reveals that he remodeled the machine himself so that he can exert his influence over everything. He orders Baron to kill Brass and all of the monsters. Brass tries to use his magic against the killer machine, but to no avail. Spells are useless against it. We switch over to Dai in the cave with Leona. She wakes up and learns of their situation. Dai apologizes to her for not being able to cure her, and she tells him that one day he will be able to use magic. Princess Leona passes out once again, and Dai, feeling helpless, is enraged. He screams that he won't allow her to die, and electricity starts to flow around him, breaking his hero crown, causing a huge lightning strike from the sky to come crashing down onto him. Brass and the Baron are surprised at the lightning strike, and Dai emerges from the cave with a glowing crest on his forehead and a determined look in his eyes. Chapter 5. Back on the beach, Brass is fighting against the killer machine. He's on his knees about to be stomped on by Baron. Dai rushes in with Princess Leona on his back, and all of the monsters and Gome are glad to see him. The bishop and Baron are both angry that Dai and the princess are still alive. The bishop yells at Baron and tells him to hurry up and kill them both before things get out of hand. Dai dodges the attack, and Brass tells Dai to run away. The killer machine swings its sword, and Dai drops to the ground, dodging the attack, protecting Princess Leona, who is unconscious. Dai tells Brass that the princess is poisoned and that she's almost dead and needs to be healed immediately. The bishop tells Baron to take care of Brass first because once he's gone there will be no one left to heal the princess. Baron points his killer machine arm that has a crossbow attached to it at Brass. Dai, realizing that Brass was in trouble, rages out again, and with the glowing crest on his head, uses some magic to redirect the arrow and sends an attack towards the killer machine, sending it flying on its back. The killer machine stands back up, unscratched and ready to go. The bishop laughs and tells Baron to dispose of them. But Baron has had enough of the bishop and throws him towards a rock, telling him that he doesn't need him anymore because no one is capable of opposing him in the killer machine. Brass mentions that Baron was taken over by the destructive power of the killer machine. Dai launches at Baron, and Baron rushes over towards Dai. Dai tries his hardest to pierce the armor of the killer machine, but to no avail. Baron starts slapping Dai around, and once he goes to deliver the finishing blow, Dai dodges and sticks his knife through the only opening in the armor of the killer machine, finally piercing it. Dai, enraged again, with the glowing crest on his head, raises his hand with magic flowing around it, and uses Beji Rama, also known as Sizzle, and the machine is engulfed with fire. The flames start pouring inside of the hole that Dai made in the armor of the killer machine, and Baron was burned from the inside. Dai finally defeats Baron in the killer machine, allowing Brass to cure the princess. The rest of the crew that were with Leona learned of the bishop and Baron's plan and take them prisoner. The princess was finally able to complete her ritual. Dai and the princess seem to have grown closer. The princess tells Dai to come to Papunica once he becomes a great hero. The princess and her crew leave, and Dai returns to his training, unable to use magic once again. Chapter 6: The Hero's Tutor. This is where the real story begins. The first 2 chapters were originally intended as a short story, but because of the success, its creator decided to do 3 more. With all of its popularity, it got serialized in Shonen Jump and continued on from there. Anyway, back to the story. A castle is being attacked by the Demon King's minions. The Demon King has been revived. Back on Durmlin Island, the sky is dark and the waters are rough. The monsters on the island are rampaging and fighting each other, and Dai is trying to calm them down. He realizes that something is wrong and runs to Brass. Brass is having a hard time as well, fighting his mind. He feels like something is taking over. Dai tells Brass what's happening on the island, and Brass tells Dai that there's only one explanation. The Demon King has been resurrected. The evil will of the Demon King is surging through the mind and bodies of all the monsters on the island, including Brass. He tells Dai to leave the island as soon as possible because Brass and the monsters might try to kill him. Brass gets a boat ready for Dai and tells him to leave, but Dai is reluctant to abandon his teacher and his friends. The monsters on the island start to rush towards Dai, and just as they are about to attack, from the rough, violent waters appear a tutor and his student on a rowboat. The tutor pushes back all the monsters and runs around the island creating a spell circle and casts a barrier spell. All of the monsters and Brass go back to being peaceful. Their minds are safe from the evil will of the Demon King. The tutor tells Brass and Dai that he is Havn't the tutor, and his student is Pop. The tutor teaches people both magic and swordsmanship. Pop is undergoing magic training at the time. Brass thinks that he's heard the name Havn't before, but he can't quite put his finger on it. Havn't explains that the Demon King has been revived, and all of his evil minions are already tormenting the kingdoms around the world, including Romos and Papunica. He then goes on to say that the Princess of Papunica sent him to train Dai and turn him into a true hero. He asked Dai if he would like to take his extra special training course so that he can defeat the Demon King, but it would be incredibly tough. Dai says that if Princess Leona is in trouble, that he has to try to help her, so he accepts. Down from the sky comes 2 gargoyles attacking from above, but they run into the magic barrier. Havn't tells Pop to get rid of them, and Pop shows off his magic skills and roasts one of them with a fire spell. The other hits Pop with a fizzle spell that prevents enemies from casting spells. With Pop unable to defend himself, the gargoyle attacks Pop with a sword, but Dai interferes and deals a strong punch to the gut of the gargoyle. The gargoyle continues his attack and knocks the knife out of Dai's hand. Havn't throws a sword to Dai, and he says that it is an ancient legendary sword. And with the sword, Dai pushes the gargoyle back. They square off, and this next attack will decide the fight. The gargoyle says that Dai would never be able to defeat him with such weak swordsmanship, and goes on to attack Dai. But before he can get the attack off, Dai's forehead begins to shine again, and he does a vertical slash that parts the water behind the gargoyle and cuts him in half. Everyone celebrates and Havn't is in shock. He reveals in his mind that the sword wasn't legendary at all, but it was actually a cheap piece of junk that he bought from a random store. Dai is incredibly talented. Chapter 7: Dai's Special Training. Dai starts his special hard training course. By taking this course, Havn't tells Dai that he can become a hero in just 1 week. Pop is surprised because no one has ever completed the training course. He says that on top of normal training, there will be extra hard training early in the morning and extra hard training late in the evening. Havn't says that Pop will be participating as well. We switch over to Dai, training on the beach, who is exhausted from running while carrying 3 big rocks that were tied together. Havn't appears carrying a giant boulder and drops it on the beach. He hands Dai a sword and tells him to use the sword to cut it in half. Dai must do this by the end of the day. Dai swings his sword with everything he's got and the sword breaks. He tells Dai to use his paprika knife instead. Dai tries over and over and only makes scratches in it. After trying for a while, Havn't picks the rock up and decides that Dai isn't ready for it yet. They jump into the regular course. The regular training starts with the basics, swordsmanship and hand-to-hand combat. And then they will have an in-depth study on magic and monsters. Then they'll go on to meditate to raise magic powers and continue with the special magic training. This is all one big panel and it's like a montage of everything. We switch over to the special magic training as Pop is using Crackle, which is an ice attack on a huge incoming wave. He freezes the wave, but not all the way through. Havn't says that magic is about concentration and tells Dai that it is his turn. The wave approaches and Dai uses the spell Crack, which is the weaker version of Crackle, but it doesn't work and the wave comes crashing down on him. He still can't use any magic. In the evening, they resume the intensive training. Havn't is training Dai's swordsmanship and he thinks that his swordsmanship is very good. He thinks to himself that Dai excels in the art of the sword. Even Brass is surprised that Dai is more determined than ever. After Dai's sparring session with Havn't, he's exhausted and falls onto the floor. Havn't shows up with his big boulder again, and he tells Dai to try one more challenge. Dai tells Havn't that he's already extremely exhausted, and Havn't tells him that he needs to trick his mind into thinking that he can do it. Dai gives it one more shot and swings at the rock with everything he's got and cuts it right in half. Dai is surprised and Havn't explains that when a person becomes tired, they try to limit themselves to simple actions. In other words, their actions are entirely instinct. Earlier, Dai swung his sword around aimlessly when he actually already had the power to cut the rock. In just one day, Dai was able to cut the rock in half like Havn't suggested. The group goes to bed, and while laying down, Havn't thinks to himself that Dai is motivated because his main goal is to save his friends, so he will improve rapidly. Pop was also allowed to take part in the special hard training courses, but instead decides to sit on the sidelines. The next morning, Dai and Havn't are back at it again, training Dai's swordsmanship, and Dai is excelling. Havn't tells Dai that he's surprised that Dai has progressed so much in just one day. He decides to show him a technique as a reward. Havn't readies his stance and performs his special sword technique, the Havn't Strash, with only a wooden stick in hand. Dai, standing behind him, is sent flying on his back. Pop is amazed that Havn't is already showing Dai his special attack after only one day. Havn't reminds Pop that he may also take part in the special training if he wants to. Chapter 8: The Dragon Who Wore Glasses. The chapter starts off with Havn't using a technique that sends rocks flying towards Dai. They're training again, and Dai cuts through them with his knife. After a night of training, Havn't is talking to Brass about Dai's training and tells him how good Dai is doing. On the other hand, Pop still decides to stand on the sidelines, but he hides and watches the extra special training, so he's interested. The next morning, Havn't takes Dai to a cave, telling him that he's already mastered the Earth Slash, so today they will be focusing on a technique that is far superior. He says that it should not be done half-heartedly, because failure would mean death. Dai wonders what the training will be, and Havn't tells him that he will simply be fighting against him, and not to hesitate to use a real sword. Pop is back at camp training himself when Gomei flies to him and tells him that Dai is going to be fighting against Havn't. Pop, surprised and scared for Dai, runs to stop Havn't because he thinks that this part of the training is too severe. Back in the cave, Havn't has turned into a dragon and Dai has been fighting against him and is already beat up. Dai thinks to himself that the Earth Slash at full power is useless against Dragon Havn't's flames and thinks back to Havn't teaching him about a technique and thinks that the Wave Slash will work. Dai starts to do the technique and Havn't realizes that Dai is on the right track but wonders if he can pull it off. Dai launches himself to Havn't and Pop arrives and screams for them to stop. But too late because Dai is in the air and Havn't is breathing fire at Dai. Dai uses the Wave Slash and everything turns bright. Chapter 9: The Demon King Reappears. This chapter is where things start to get exciting. It starts off with two fishermen in a rowboat, but the weather is suddenly getting bad, and the waters are starting to get rough and dangerous. The two fishermen haven't had any luck, and one of them is scared because they're getting close to Durmlin Island, also known as Monster Island. Suddenly, a lightning bolt strikes down from the sky and hits the water. To their surprise, there's now a person standing on top of the water. we get a close-up to his eyes, and he says that he's arrived to the island that he's been looking for. He turns around and sees the two fishermen and shoots a blast at them that continues to shoot to the island, where it hits the barrier that Avon created. We switch over to Dai, slicing through the flames of Dragon Avon, and cuts him on his nose. Avon states that judging by Dai's attack on the gargoyle that cut him in half, he was sure that he could pull off the wave slash. He says that the earth slash is a power technique and the wave slash is a speed technique. And in just a few days, because of the power that Dai already had, his speed was able to increase rapidly, making him able to cut through the flames thanks to the pressure created by his increased speed. Fire, water, or something with no true form. The wave slash can cut through it. Since Dai is able to use the wave slash, he will soon be able to finish the special training course. Avon wants a band-aid for his cut nose, and they all start laughing. Suddenly, the happy mood is cut short, and Avon gets serious. The island starts to shake. Avon states that someone is trying to get through the barrier. The barrier is supposed to reject all evil, and a normal monster shouldn't be able to step onto the island, like the gargoyles. The man from the water steps through the barrier, and the island starts to shake even more. Dai can feel someone with incredible power, and Brass is struggling to stay in control again. Suddenly, an explosion. A hole is blown into the top of the cave, and standing there is the man from the water, the Demon King, Hadlar. And that's the end of Volume 1. The next volume is full of a lot of action, and the story starts to take its shape. This manga is great at explaining spells and techniques, and I think that's very important when it comes to world building. This volume was a great setup for what's to come. Starting with the Demon King Adlar's encounter with Avon and Dai, things are bound to get serious. I'm really enjoying this manga, and I can't wait for the anime to come out in fall. I hope you guys will continue to join me on my journey into the world of Dragon Quest. If you guys like this video, please subscribe and hit the like button. Drop a comment, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you get notified and don't miss any of my videos when they come out. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of my Dragon Quest journey, and I'll see you next time with the next Dragon Quest video. Peace out, my G's.